The stimulation of the muscle fiber or the muscle cell to contract is formally called excitation. It involves neurons that are called motor neurons, which release neurotransmitters in order to stimulate the muscle cell. An action potential in the stimulated neuron will cause the release of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine from the axon terminal of the neuron. The axon terminal is the expanded end of a structure on the neuron that is called the axon. The axon is a structure that creates action potentials. Motor neurons that control skeletal muscles may have dozens or hundreds of axon terminals, each axon terminal forming a single synapse or a single connection with one muscle cell. This means that a single motor neuron can stimulate dozens or even hundreds of muscle fibers to contract simultaneously. Once released, the acetylcholine will bind to acetylcholine receptors on the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber. If enough acetylcholine is released and it binds to the acetylcholine receptors, the receptors will ultimately lead to the creation of an action potential in the skeletal muscle cell that will spread across the sarcolemma. Figure 10.6 examines the synapse of the motor neuron and a single skeletal muscle fiber. The region where the acetylcholine receptors are found on the sarcolemma is often called the motor end plate. The stimulated neuron will release the neurotransmitter called acetylcholine from its axon terminals. Prior to release, acetylcholine is stored in small vesicles that are called synaptic vesicles. Once released, acetylcholine diffuses across a small fluid-filled gap called the synaptic cleft, and it will bind to acetylcholine receptors on the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber. Binding of acetylcholine to its receptors will activate the muscle fiber and will ultimately lead to the creation of an action potential that spreads across the sarcolemma of the muscle cell.